Can fighting be healthy? And what do you say to couples who claim they don't fight?
I think disagreements are a healthy part of a relationship, and I think you need to discuss things and argue, but it's how you argue. I think if you hold things inside, it can lead to resentment. You hear about couples who break up and they say, we never fought, you know, nobody expected it, but they're sometimes holding resentment for years.
Yeah.
But I think how you fight is important. So you don't want to attack the other person. You have to be open and really listen. Some people are very defensive, and it's more of an ego-based thing. Some people in very obsessive sort of relationships where they're just focusing on their own needs. The research shows it is a defense mechanism, and I just want to get my opinion across because it's about me. I'm not thinking about James, let's say, then that's very healthy. But you should take turns really being able to communicate what's on your mind and being open and not interrupt the person when he or she's speaking.
Research indicates that if you have contempt for your spouse, then that can be really dangerous ground. We all have disagreements, and to try to paper them over and pretend like we don't is just another myth. And I think it can be a very dangerous myth in relationships. So finding ways of being clear about what the disagreement is about, but not then attacking the other person, is really crucial.
So do you call it fighting?
Sure, if you want to, yeah.
What mistakes do we make when we fight? What are the typical mistakes we make?
Well, look, I think one typical mistake we make is focusing so much on what we're fighting about that we forget the bigger picture, right? It's so easy to zone in on what annoys us about the other person. If they just fixed this, patched that up, changed that, life would be great, right? And so we tend to focus exactly on those things. And Susie mentioned earlier that research indicates there's actually a lot more going on around us than those problems. There are very many positive things, right? And so when we're having a fight only about the negatives, our spouse or our partner can then think, wow, you don't really like me or love me. It's all about this altercation, right? So one thing is to be aware of the bigger picture, not to forget the broader reasons that brought us together in the first place that can provide context to the narrow disagreement that we're having at the moment.
That you forget about the reason.
That you forget about the whole relationship.
10 minutes later.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes we think we're mind readers. So in my experience, this is how I would feel. But you know what? My experience is very different from James's experience. So I think if I'm very upset and I'm angry with him, instead of just focusing on the problem, what is it that I want? Because he might not know.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes between women and men, we might talk to our girlfriends and say, how did he not know that? And then it's shocking. Sometimes he really didn't. So sometimes, not just to men, but sometimes we have to really spell it out and ask, this is what I was looking for. This is why I'm upset. Instead of fighting about what didn't happen or what went wrong, this is what I want. How can we get there? So more solution-based.
That just, if something is bugging you about your partner, what's the best way to communicate that to them?
Well, one question to ask is if something about you is really bugging to your partner, what helps you to listen in those contexts, right? And it's probably not somebody jumping in and saying, you know what, if you could just correct this and this and this, you'd be great, right? But it's really within the context. If you feel like you're in a loving relationship, if you feel like the other person is seeing the good in you, and not just the bad in you, then you're much more receptive to having conversations about minor tweaks as opposed to personality makeovers so that you can be a good spouse or a good partner.
Watch new episodes of Larry King Now Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on demand on Aura TV and Hulu.